Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live Cricut workshop, Cricut 102. We're just going to get started in just a little bit. We're just going to give folks a chance to make their way into our Zoom space. Welcome, everyone, again. We are coming to you live, and I'm super excited you're all here joining us. So as folks are making their way in, I'm going to launch a polling question, and I'm curious to know if you've taken one of our other Cricut workshops. So this is a multiple choice question, so feel free to answer if you've taken more than one, of course. I know some of you might have joined us earlier this week for our 101. So if you're back, welcome back. We're excited to have you here. But go ahead and fill out that polling question, and we're going to get started in just a little bit. We are recording today's class. If you've taken one of our classes before, you know that we record them and you do get that recording. So we are recording today's class, and we will be providing you with a YouTube link so you can watch back that recording. So if you miss anything, you do have today's recording that you can fall back on, and you can pretty much watch back as many times as you'd like. So again, we're just going to give it a couple more seconds before we jump into today's workshop. And if you're just joining us right now, welcome. We have this polling question up. We'd love to know, which Cricut workshop or workshops have you taken before? So thank you in advance for filling that out. Again, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. All right. And I'm going to give it just another 5 seconds before I end that poll. And we're going to have lots of fun today, learning more about Design Space, some of the advanced features of Design Space. Okay, so I'm going to end that polling question. We're going to launch the results in just a second. Welcome, everyone, to Cricut 102. My name is Danny. I'm going to be your Cricut coach. And as I mentioned, we are live. We are recording today's workshop. We are streaming it on YouTube. And if you go to our chat section, one of our Cricut experts, Katie, actually dropped the link to today's recording. So you can go ahead and click on it. Just know that if you do open it up, you're probably going to hear me talking twice. So you might want to mute that YouTube link. You can go ahead and copy it and paste it in a Word document so you have it for use later on. We will be emailing it to you as well. But if you want that link right away, you do have it already available to you. So how does this class work? Throughout this class, I'm going to be sharing with you tons of information. First, I'm going to be sharing a brief slide presentation, and then we're going to do a little bit of practicing. We call it Cricut calisthenics, where you just get to go in and really stretch your Cricut muscles. Part 3, we're actually going to be creating a project. Now, throughout today's workshop, if you have any questions, you want to use our Q&A section located down below, because we have 2 Cricut experts. We have Katie and Christine joining us. They're working behind the scenes. They're typing real fast, answering all of your questions. So feel free to ask them any questions. Feel free, if you get behind on a step, they can help you, right? They can catch you up. And I might just answer some of these questions live as well. So again, you want to use the Q&A section located down below on the bottom of your screen. Now, after today's class, what if you have additional questions or need additional assistance? We have a special email address that you can use, and it's makewithus@cricut.com. Again, that email address is makewithus@cricut.com, and we just put that in the chat for you. Feel free to send us an email and give us about 24 hours, and we'll be able to get a response out to you. So you do have that available to you if you need any additional assistance after today's class. So I launched a polling question right when we started, and I wanted to know, which Cricut workshops have you taken before? So I'm just going to share those results. And it looks like 53% of you have taken 101. Wonderful. Because 102 is really going to focus in on the advanced features of Design Space. So if there's anything that you're unsure of today and you haven't taken 101, you could always go back and sign up for our 101 class. 25% have taken our card workshop. I love our card workshop. It's so much fun. 23%, this is your first Cricut workshop. Welcome. 12% have taken our iron-on workshop. 5% have taken 102. Welcome back. And 3% have taken our paper flowers. So these polling questions really are for myself and our Cricut experts to really know who's in the room. So again, thank you for answering that question. I'm going to launch one more polling question. And I'm curious to know, which type of machine will you be using? Whether you are crafting along today, or maybe it's the machine that you do use all the time. I'm going to be working with the Maker 3. But again, sometimes I might use my Joy or my Joy Extra. So which machine are you going to be using today? And we've added the Joy Extra there with the Joy. And with any of you on a venture, you have that option available to you as well. All right, so go ahead and fill out that question. And I'm going to share those results in just a second. All right, and again, for those of you that are just joining us, again, welcome. We are live. We're recording today's class, and we will be sharing that recording with you. So just know that you will be getting that recording. And actually, if you go to the chat right now, that link is available to you. So you have access to that. So let's end the poll and see. So it looks like we have 33% of you are using a Maker 3. I'm also using a Maker 3. 25% are using an Explore Air. 23% are using our regular Maker. We have 8% using an Explore 3. We have 5% using our Cricut Joy or Joy Extra, and we have 6% using our Cricut Explore. So again, thank you so much for answering that for me. All right. And we're going to end those polling questions for just a second. I will be asking a few others later on. So again, how is today's class going to work? Part 1, I'm going to share a brief slide presentation with you, going over the advanced features that we're going to be exploring today. Part 2, we're going to do a little bit of practicing. We're actually going to go into Design Space and get to practice what we just learned in that slide presentation. And then part 3, we're actually going to be creating a project. So there's going to be a lot of repetition, and we purposely do that so you're getting to try something out more than once, right? You're getting to see it in practice more than once. So again, if you have any questions, just use that Q&A section located down below. If you're going to be crafting along with me and you haven't already, make sure that you open up Design Space and you turn on your machine, because I would hate for you to not have that ready. There's always updates that need to take place. So we want to make sure that you are ready to go. All right, so we are going to get started. And I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to jump right into our slide presentation. So before we jump in, I do want to point out, here's a glimpse, just a little sneak peek at the project we're going to be making today. So I'm going to be showing you how to create this wonderful Be Kind design on a tumbler, right? So we're going to be learning how to use slice and weld and attach, all of those advanced tools to bring this wonderful Be Kind image to life that you're seeing right here on a tumbler. Or maybe you're going to be putting it on a different blank. It's really up to you. So again, we're going to be focusing in on the canvas in Design Space and some of the advanced features. So just a quick little review of Design Space. Again, this is Cricut's software program, and it works on a desktop and laptop, works on your mobile and tablet devices. And if you're working on a mobile or a tablet device, it's going to work with your Android and iOS operating systems. We're going to be working on the canvas, and just a little definition for you about the canvas. It's where you get to create and customize all your projects. And I like to say that the canvas is kind of like an artist's canvas, right? Where you're going to throw colors, ideas, just really create something beautiful and something you can really be proud of. So now, if you're working on a mobile device, this is what your canvas will look like on your phone, right? So immediately you notice it's a lot smaller. And all of your controls, all of your tools are located on the bottom of your screen. And for some of these tools, you need to click on them, and it's going to open up another layer of tools that might be available to you, right? So if you're on a mobile or a tablet device, let our Cricut experts know if you're having any challenges or you're having any additional questions, because it's going to make it a lot easier for them to know that you're on a mobile or a tablet device and be able to provide you with the right resources. Now, if you're on a tablet device, this is what your canvas will look like. Now, very similar to a mobile device, a little less screen than you would have on a desktop or a laptop. And once again, the icons are located on the bottom of the screen. The only difference here is it's broken up into 3 different groups. So let's dive into Design Space, and in particular, just review the canvas if you're working on a desktop. So again, this slide right here, if you're on a desktop or a laptop, this is what your canvas will look like. So I want to just give you just a brief little tour. So right at the top here, this gray bar at the top, that's our header bar. That's always going to tell you the name of your project. Over on the right-hand side, you have options to access all of your projects. That's under your My Stuff. You want to save your project. You can do that by clicking on the Save button. You have your machine selection, which will show you currently what machine you are using. And then, of course, you have your Make It button. Once you're ready to send your project to your machine, you're going to click on that Make It button right there. Okay. Now, this next slide here, it's indicating, it has this this yellow circle right here indicating my shape, my circle that's there. And you notice the shape has a bounding box around it, which means that it's selected. So images are selected on the canvas when that bounding box is indicated, right? When you have something selected, you're able to move it across your canvas. You can resize it. Sometimes you'll notice that some items are grayed out or ghosted, and that usually means it's because something isn't selected. So if you notice you can't use a specific tool, that usually means you don't have the right item selected or the right amount of items selected on your canvas. So for example, right here, if I look at the edit bar, which is right below the header bar, right here where it's indicated, my align function is grayed out. It's not available to me. Some of the other tools like edit, arrange, flip, offset, those are all available because that works with just one image. But in the case of align, I need to have more than 2 images to be able to, I need to have at least 2 images or more to be able to do any kind of alignment. So if you notice something is grayed out or ghosted, it usually means you haven't selected it or you don't have enough items on your canvas to be able to use it. So right now here, I have 2 circles on my canvas and they're both selected, right? There's a bounding box over the 2 circles. So now if I come to my edit bar, immediately I see that the align option is now available. It's now ready for use, right? It's no longer grayed out or ghosted. It's a dark gray. It is available for me to be able to use. So since we're talking a little bit about the edit bar, let's explore a few more features that are available to you. I mentioned how when you have the bounding box, you can manually resize your image. You can move it across the canvas. Now, you can manually resize something, but let's say you have very specific dimensions in mind. You can come over to the edit bar and look for the size section. You'll see a W and an H for width and height. In that size section, you can put in very specific dimensions on what you need that shape to be. And I want you to keep in mind, there's a little lock icon between the width and height. You need to unlock it. What you're doing is you're unlocking your proportions before you put in what your width and height to be, right? That's going to allow you to unlock the proportions and now set what you want that new size to be. And then once you have your desired measurement, you want to make sure that you now lock it in place by clicking on that lock button once again to make sure that those dimensions are locked in place. If you don't lock it and you move it around, it's going to resize on its own. So you want to make sure that you click on that lock icon to once again lock those dimensions in place. And again, there it's just indicating once again that size function for you right there in the edit bar. Some of the other great features of the edit bar that we're going to be using today, we're going to be learning how to change the color of something. So over on the left-hand side of the edit bar, you have your operation type. Your operation is what your machine is going to be doing to your design, right? So right now it says basic cut. That means my machine is going to cut out these circles. If I wanted to change that, I can click on the drop-down menu, and it now gives me the option to change the operation type. So maybe instead of cutting it, I want my machine to draw it, right? If I'm adding text, for example, maybe I don't want my machine to cut out the text. I want my machine to draw the writing that I've added to my project. So I would make sure that my operation type is set to draw. And in particular, it would be set to pen, for example. If I wanted to change the color, right next to my operation type, there's a little square that is going to be the current color of your shape, of your text, of your image. And if you click on it, it's going to give you this drop-down menu for color. So you can now select whatever you want your new material color to be. You can select your material color. It even gives you an advanced section. If you don't find the color that you exactly need, you can use this as advanced section to exactly find what you're looking for. You can put in a code. Let's say you're working with like Pantone colors. You can type in exactly what that color code would be and find exactly the color that you are using. Now, a lot of times folks will say, well, do I really need to change the color on the canvas if I'm just going to be placing down whatever colored vinyl I'm using? And I like to say, you know what? Again, I treat it like an artist canvas. So I'm putting all the colors. I'm putting everything that I need on that canvas because I want to see what my final project will look like before clicking on that Make It button. That's how you're going to avoid making mistakes, how you're going to avoid wasting colors by adding all the colors to your project. Plus, when you save it and you go back to it, you can then see what colors you've used, right? And if you need to redo that project, you have all of that information all squared away for you. Now, our 102 class is going to focus in on the layers panel, which is where everything you add to your canvas will end up. So let's jump into that layers panel. And again, on a desktop or a laptop, that layers panel is located on the right-hand side. If you're on a mobile or a tablet device, you're going to click on that layers icon, and that's going to give you a pop-up of layers that will come up for you. So looking at the layers panel, at the top of the layers panel, you have three icons. You've got your group function, you have your duplicate button, and you have your little trash can. Okay. So let's start with group first. if you were to click on group for these two circles, it's going to group them together. So essentially, group will hold more than two layers together on the canvas. Once you've grouped something together, you're able to move them across the canvas together. You're able to resize them together. The difference, though, is when you group and you're able to resize and move them together, each individual item will still maintain their single status, right? So right here, I would click on that first icon at the top of the layers panel, group, and then immediately it would be indicated on my layers panel. It'll say group, and then it'll have everything underneath, right? So it goes into a subheading with group at the top, which is indicated right there. Once you group something, you can ungroup it by clicking on that same button that you use for group. Now, what if you wanted to rename your group? You can do that, right? So if I go back to the last slide here, it just says group and circle, circle. What if I wanted to rename that group layer to circles? I can do that. Just by double clicking on it, it allows me to start typing whatever I want it to be. So if you were renaming a file folder on the desktop of your computer, same thing, you would just do that double click and it allows you to change the label in the layers panel. This really comes in handy when you're working with a project that's got so many different layers. You want to make sure that you're able to really know exactly what you're working with. So it's going to really come in handy depending on how complex your project may be. And again, just by double click, you can label, not only when you group it, you can change the label of each layer in your layers panel. And again, if you want to ungroup, you just click on the same button that you clicked on to group it, and that will ungroup your layers for you. I talked a little bit about align before. So align works when you have two or more layers selected. And this is an incredible tool that I highly, highly encourage you to explore. So when you go to the align button on the edit bar and you click on that little drop-down menu, it's going to give you all these different types of alignments, right? So if I was to select the last one, which says center, this is what my two circles would look like. Perfectly aligned, right? So you can manually align your circles, but is it going to be perfectly aligned? You just don't know, right? So why go through all that hassle when you can come up to the align function in the edit bar and give you that wonderful, invaluable tool that's available to you. So I highly recommend using the align. Again, we're going to be using it in today's project as well. So now that I have two items, two circles, they're both selected, right? So once you have multiple layers on your canvas, one thing that's going to become activated that wasn't activated before is the action icons at the bottom of your layers panel. So the bottom of your layers panel, you have these action icons. And for those of you on a mobile or a tablet device, click on that action button and your action icons will appear. So we've got slice, we have combine, which has its own drop-down menu of different tools. There's attach, flatten, and contour. For today's class, we're going to be focusing in on the first three: slice, combined, and attach. I will tell you a little bit about flatten and contour. So if you're interested in using them outside of today's workshop, you know a little bit about them. But we're going to be focusing in on the first three for today's class and for the project that we're going to be creating today. So let's jump into learning a little bit more about these layers, these action icons explained a little bit deeper. And we're going to start with the slice tool. So just a little definition for you. The slice tool splits two overlapping images or text into different parts, right? So for example, I have these two circles right here. Now, I would select both of them And then I would go down to the bottom of the layers panel and click on slice. And this is what my result is going to be. So I went from 2 circles to now having this new result right here. The key with slice is it only works with 2 items. So you cannot select slice if you have 3. You cannot select slice if you have 1. You need only 2 items for slice to work. However, I went from 2 circles and now I have 3 new slice results, 3 layers. So it's going to slice into 2 items and give you some new results. When you use the slice function, it's not going to separate like you're seeing on my slide. We've just moved that just to show you what it looks like. So just know when we go in live, you'll get to see actually what happens, and then we're going to be separating everything. I want to point out that your layers panel will indicate for you that you've done a slice result, right? All of a sudden, your layers will change and it'll say slice result for you. Another way to think about slice is with making cookies. So if you're a baker and you like to make cookies, I want you to think of slice as a cookie cutter, right? So on my slide right here, I have all these gingerbread men, right? So I have a red one right here, which is going to be represented by my cookie cutter. And then I have my cookie dough, which is our blob right here. If I was to take my cookie cutter, right? If I was to take my cookie cutter and start to press into my dough, when I remove my cookie cutter and the dough that I just cut into, this is going to be a result right here. So again, it's just 2 items. It's my cookie cutter and my dough that I'm going to be cutting into. And my result is going to be 3 items. I have my cookie cutter, I have my cutout piece of cookie dough, and then I have my leftover cookie dough as well. Okay. So that's one way to think of how you can use the slice. For today's project, we're going to be taking 2 circles and overlapping them and creating that nice little ring. That is going to be where, if you remember from the first slide where I show you the bee is going to be inside of a ring. That's how we are going to be creating the ring for our project. Okay. Now, so far, you've seen slice where it's completely overlapped, completely centered, or you're cutting into a bigger piece. You can really use slice in lots of different ways. So for example, my two circles right here, what if I wanted to kind of show you like a slice of pie version of slice? I just have to make sure that there's some type of overlapping with these 2 circles. And then once I select the 2 of them, they have to both be selected, and I get that bounding box around the 2 of them. Once I click on slice down at the bottom of the layers panel, this is going to be my new result. So as you pull apart the layers, you're going to see these new shapes created. It's not going to show you the shapes already pulled apart. It's going to still be together, overlapping, and then you're going to manually move them to reveal the new shapes that have been created. And again, your layers panel will tell you that there's some slice results that have just happened, so you know that that is available to you. A really creative way of using slice is by coming up with your own images. So look at this really fun chocolate chip cookie with these bite marks. This is using slice result, taking smaller circles and overlapping them in different parts of this bigger circle, which represents my chocolate chip cookie, and really creating those bite marks. So again, I encourage you to explore using slice not only to create rings, which is what we're going to be doing today, but also creating your own images as well, because it really is an invaluable tool that I know you're going to love. Our next action icon is the Combine tool. And the Combine tool allows you to join shapes to create a single customized image by removing any overlapping cut lines, right? So the combine tool is going to take my two circles and it's going to create one new shape. Now, I mentioned how the combine tool has its own little drop-down menu because the combine tool provides 4 actions. There's unite, subtract, intersect, exclude, and there's also weld, which is right at the top, which is the one that we're going to be using. So we're going to be focusing in on weld and using weld, but I want to just show you how each of these look once you use unite, subtract, intersect, and exclude. So let's look at our first one, which is weld. So if I go to the previous slide, here's my 2 circles right here in the middle. They're overlapping just a little bit, but they're still individual circles. If I was to select weld, this is going to be my weld result. So my weld result turns into one single layer. And if I go to the layers panel, it's going to say weld result. That's going to be indicated right there. One thing to keep in mind is you cannot unweld once you save your project. So as you're working on your project and you haven't saved it, you could always come up to the edit bar over on the left-hand side and click on that backwards arrow, the undo, right? You can click on that undo arrow and go a step back if you use the weld and you don't want to use it anymore. Once you save your project, the weld is set, right? You would have to delete it and start over. However, you can use Unite. Unite is relatively new. And once again, Unite looks very similar to Weld. The biggest difference with Unite is it's leaving your individual layers intact. So here it says Unite, but my circles are still intact, right? Where Weld, it was one completely new shape. A lot of times folks will say, you know, well, which do you prefer, Weld or Unite? Weld has been around a lot longer, so I've gotten used to always using Weld. So I tend to use Weld more than Unite. You now have this option of using Unite and knowing that you have those individual layers intact. So it's really a preference in terms of what you want to do. If you know that you need to weld something, go for it, right? If you're unsure, go ahead and try Unite, and you do have those individual layers still intact. This next one is showing us subtract. So subtract removes the shapes from the last or bottom layer of any selected group of objects. Unlike slice, you can subtract multiple objects all at once. So it removed essentially my other circle and whatever was overlapping, right? And it's giving me this new shape. This one is intersect. So intersect gives us a new cut shape consisting of only the overlapping parts. So whatever was overlapping with my 2 circles, that's what's left once you use intersect. And again, your layers panel will always indicate what function you've just used. Our last one is exclude. So exclude gives you a new cut shape, and it's only going to give you whatever is not overlapping, right? So the overlapping portion of my 2 circles removed, and this is the shape that it's going to give you right here. And once again, it's indicated right there in the layers panel. So combine has really given you lots of different opportunities to really create some unique shapes and be able to modify your project however you need it to be. Our next action icon is attach, which we're going to be using today. So definition for attach. Attach holds your cuts, your cut lines, your cuts in position relative to one another so that images on the cutting mat are positioned exactly as arranged on the canvas. So what does that mean? So when you attach something, you're telling your machine exactly how you have it on your canvas is how I need you to cut it out. by using the attach function. So I like to say attach is kind of like you're freezing your design in place, right? So if I was to attach these two circles, my machine is going to cut them out exactly how they are laid out right here on the canvas. If I don't attach them, right, this is what's going to happen. On the next, once you click that make it button, you come to your prepare screen, they're separated. They're on two different mats because they're two different colors. So my machine thinks, oh, they're two separate items. I need them to be separate. I would have to click on the cancel button to go back and then select the two of them and click on attach. Once I do that, this is what my prepare screen will look like. Once again, they are exactly how I have them on my canvas when I applied the attach function to them. So again, it's freezing your design in place. So let me show you a couple examples of actual designs and when you do not use attach, and then when you do use attach, what happens. So this slide right here, I want you to look on the left-hand side. We're making this snowflake frame ornament, right? So two different colors I'm using for this project, but I want my snowflake and my snowflake frame, which are both going to be silver, I want them to be attached because I want them to cut out together, right? That's going to make it a lot easier for me to assemble everything. Now, if I don't attach it, over here on the right-hand side, look how it's separated. They're actually side by side because my machine thinks that I want them cut out separately. Even though they are the same color, my machine still thinks I want them to be cut out separately. So again, I would have to click on the cancel button to go back to my canvas. Over here on the left-hand side, select the snowflake and the snowflake frame, make sure they're both selected, click on attach, and then right here on the right-hand side, look how they're both on the mat, right? So if you want your machine to cut out your design a specific way, just know that you need to use that attach function. And also keep in mind too, that when you attach two or more items together, it's going to take on the same color. So you're not going to always use attach unless you need it to be together and they're the same color, right? Because then it's going to get a little bit tricky if they're supposed to be different colors and you need them in the same position right there. So that's how the attach function works. And again, we're going to be using this today, so you'll get to see it in action in a little bit. The next action icon is flatten. We do not cover flatten in this class, but it's something that folks are interested in, especially if you want to do print then cut, right? If you're working with print then cut, you really want to learn how to use flatten. So on this slide right here, I have this beautiful daisy. And when I add it to my canvas, over on my layers panel on the right-hand side, I have my daisy, and then I have all the different layers, all the stems and leaves and petals. Every little part of it is listed in the layers panel. Now for print then cut, and if you're not familiar with print then cut, the way it works is you find images like this, and what happens is you're going to have your home printer print out the full color design, and then your Cricut machine is going to cut out an outline of it. So this is like a great way to create like stickers, just some really fun cutouts, right? So before you can click on that make it button and send it to your home printer, you need to consolidate all of these layers into one. You need to flatten it, right? So you would go down to the bottom of your layers panel, right where those action icons are, and you would click on flatten. Once you click on flatten, this is what's going to happen right here in your layers panel. It's going to say flatten, and then it'll actually will say print then cut. So it's showing you that it's ready for print then cut, and you can now connect to your home printer and have your home printer print it out, and then your Cricut machine would cut out the outline of it. So that's how flatten works. I do want to mention, if you're interested in print then cut, we have some great on-demand videos at our Cricut Learn site, which is learn.cricut.com. Check it out. Our YouTube channel has hundreds of videos as well that you can check out. that are going to talk more about print than cut. Our last action icon that I want to talk about is contour. So contour allows you to hide or unhide any cut lines you don't want. So contour is really great when you find a wonderful image and maybe you just don't want all the details that are a part of that image. So for example, I have this Love You Mum. I really love the font style of the Love You Mum, but maybe I don't want all of the details, all of the flower details that are shaped like a heart. So I can select this entire image, go down to the bottom of the layers panel, click on contour, and I'm going to get this pop-up screen right here, which now allows me to hide contour. So you can hide or unhide any of those cut lines. And each layer is right here on the side right here that you can click on to hide, or you can actually click on the actual image to hide it, right? So once you decide what you want to hide, you would then click on the X to X out of it, and that's your result right there. Right? So I took out all of the other stuff around it just to get the Love You Mum and a couple little hearts in there. So again, it really comes in handy if you find an image that you really like, but maybe you don't want to use all of the elements of that image. You can just hide them and pretty much create a completely brand new image. So contour is really cool, a really cool tool that you can use. But again, for today's class, we're going to focus in on slice, weld, and attach. And in just a little bit, we're going to move on to part 2, where we're going to warm up our Cricut calisthenics. So we're going to do some stretching, but I promise it's not any strenuous stretching. We're going to stretch our Cricut muscles. And the point of Cricut calisthenics is for you to open up Design Space, a blank canvas, and just practice. We're going to be adding shapes. We're going to be changing colors, resizing, slicing, welding, just practicing these tools. So then we could take all of those tools we just practiced with and apply them to a project. But before we do that, though, again, if you've joined us, if you missed the beginning, we are recording today's class. You are going to get the recording. Actually, if you go to our chat, we have a YouTube link available to you that you can go ahead and copy it, and you'll have it available to you to watch. If not, we will be emailing the link to you as well. If you have any questions, you want to use our Q&A section located down below. We've got Katie and Christine joining us, our 2 Cricut experts, answering your questions. Katie, is there any questions that came up that we just want to answer right now that everyone can hear about and benefit from?
We have some good ones. The most of them are about print and cut, so I will talk about that a little bit since it's not something we cover in the class to give everybody a little bit more information. What kind of printer is recommended was one that came up. Cricut does recommend an inkjet printer because inkjet printers are most compatible with the sensor, but the materials out there are mostly designed for inkjet printers. Finding laser compatible materials is not only difficult but quite expensive. So inkjet is recommended. I personally have an Epson Eco Tank that I've had for like 4.5 years at this point, and I've only refilled my ink twice. They are a little more pricey, so it's not for everyone, but if you want something more inexpensive, I know plenty of people who have just like $35 ones that they got on Black Friday. Just read the reviews is what I recommend. I like the Eco Tank because it's really good on ink and the replacement ink is really cheap. um Amanda said that she added an image to her canvas, but the operations were grayed out, like attach and weld and flatten, but her image was already set to print and cut. So there is nothing to be done for that image. It's already ready to go. Flatten is when you're compressing multiple layers into one single layer for your printer to cut out. Erica had asked about is there a way to print on vinyl without smudging it? So vinyl is not printable. it is it's not, but Cricut makes printable vinyl. They make printable vinyl, printable sticker paper. They just came out with a whole new line that has like a holographic overlay. They have waterproof. And honestly, guys, I love it so much. I just ordered like 20 more packs. And my daughter loves the new sticker paper, so we ordered a bunch of that for her. It is a little bit thicker, so I like it like if you're adding it to a card or something like that, because it's thicker like cardstock. But I prefer the printable vinyl. My daughter prefers the sticker paper. So, but if you want to print on vinyl, Cricut makes printable vinyl. Joanna, the exact model of the printer that I have, they discontinued it. They don't make it anymore because it's like seriously, I've had it for almost 5 years. It's the ET2650, I believe. So it's quite old. Can you use attach and flatten on a print and cut? Technically, yes, but really there's very few instances where you'll need to use attach. Flatten is really the only like thing for print and cut. If you are using a score line, say you're making a card that has like a printable element to it, you would flatten everything and then attach the score line to the flattened set. But there's really very few instances that you would attach anything. It's really only flatten. Cleaning mats, somebody brought up, Coach is going to cut, he's going to cover how to clean your mats and give great tips on that. But the difference between group and attach, group is going to hold everything on your canvas for you to move it around, but it doesn't really hold anything in place. And attach is going to hold your like colors in place. So if you have, say, like an image of an American flag, you would attach all the red layers, then attach all the white layers, and then attach all the blue layers. You attach by color and it keeps them in place. We are going to go over that today too. Joanna, I honestly, any of the Epson Eco tanks, I highly recommend. I have not heard a bad thing about it, and I have a couple friends who have gotten some of the newer models. And I really love my printer. It's just old, so they no longer make it. But any of the newer Eco tanks, I just recommend the Eco tanks in general because they're really great printers. I'm very happy with my quality. The only thing I would look for is a rear feed. Because some of the thicker materials have a more difficult time feeding with the ones that pull it over, like in and over. That rear feed, mine's a rear feed, and I printed on printable fabric, printable sticker paper, like everything. All right, Coach, back to you.
Yeah, and plus, thanks, Katie. Those eco tanks, the ink lasts forever. You're really not going to be spending so much time having to refill those tanks with ink because you're not using cartridges. I actually have a Canon, which I like as well, but there's as Katie mentioned, there's so many out there that are available to you. So I'm sure whichever one you end up working with is going to be great, and the print and cut is really fun. So thanks, Katie. So continue to ask questions. Again, you want to just use our Q&A section located down below. Ayana, is there a class for learning how to make business cards? So there isn't a class specifically for making business cards, but we do have card classes. And I do want to mention that if you're looking to do a specific project and it's not necessarily that project in our class, the tools that we're sharing with you in those classes, so like for card making, you're going to learn all about what it's like doing card making, whether it's making cards, note cards, scrapbooking, it's working with cardstock. So you're learning the skills of working with paper that you'll be able to apply that to making business cards, because you're going to be learning how to add text and work with pens. So just know that if it's not a specific project that you are looking to do, all of these classes we offer giving you the tools you need to then learn about, for example, working with vinyl and then saying, okay, this is what I need to do. Or like maybe you want to do Christmas cards and our card class is working on a birthday card. It's the same skills, you're just changing the images, right? So just know, I would sign up for the card making class. I do want to mention too that if you leave class early, or if you or at the end of class, a survey will pop up, right? and we would greatly appreciate your feedback. We're always trying to make these classes better for you. We also want to know what else you want to make and what else you want to learn. So you could put that down on the survey. So thank you again for doing that. All right, so we're going to jump into part 2. If you haven't already, you want to make sure that you've opened up your design space just to make sure there's no updates or anything you need to do. And of course, turn on your machine as well. I'm going to share my screen and open up design space. So here I am at the home screen right here. And we want to open up a blank canvas, right? So we're going to come up to the right-hand side where it says new project. And we want to open up that blank canvas because, again, this is going to be a practice canvas. And again, you know, some of the steps we're going to do might seem silly. The whole point is for you to become comfortable. Depending on whatever device you're going to be working on. And actually, before I do that, let me just launch one more quick polling question because I am curious to know what type of devices you're using. But again, whatever device you're using, whether you're on your desktop or you're on your mobile device, just maneuvering is a big part of it, right? You know, if I'm working with my mouse, being confident, moving my mouse around, adding items, resizing with my mouse makes me a lot more confident to be able to create certain projects and to move at a faster pace. Same thing if you're using your finger on your tablet device or your phone, right? So just opening up a practice canvas can make such a huge difference. But real quick, I just want to know what type of device you are using Design Space for. And if you use more than one device, just pick whichever one you use the most, right? So for me, I use all of them. I tend to start on my desktop and then I might move to my mobile device and then finish on my tablet device. So I would just pick the one that you use the most, right?
Hey, Coach.
Yes.
While everyone is answering that, I just wanted to give a reminder that during the calisthenics, as well as the live portion of class, in the chat, we will be providing everything that Coach is doing for mobile devices step by step. So I know that not everything is out in the open like it is on the computer. So we provide you with step by step where to find everything. So if you guys are on using a mobile device, open up that chat and everything will be there for you guys step by step. And then we just had, I'm gonna make sure, Claire asked how often do new classes usually come out, and we actually have the schedule for the rest of the year out available on Cricut Learn, and we'll drop a link to upcoming classes in the chat because we have a lot of really exciting things coming up.
Yeah, we do. In addition to 101 and 102, you know, we always do some kind of paper crafts. We're going to be doing a paper ornament. We've got some wine tote bags that we're going to be making. So some fun classes are coming up. I want to mention to Katie, you will also be putting, I will be working in inches, but you'll be putting the centimeters equivalent in the chat as well. So if you're working with centimeters, you're going to have that information in the chat as well. So great. All right, so let me end this poll. Let's see. So 79% of you are using a desktop or laptop, 12% are using a tablet device, and we have 9% using a mobile device. So again, thank you so much for answering that. All right, so now I'm going to share my screen once again. And we're going to open up Design Space. Here I am in my blank canvas. Okay, so again, practice canvas. So the first thing I want to add is a shape. So if you are completely new to Cricut and still learning about different tools, sign up for 101 because we take you through all the different parts of the canvas. So I want us to come over to the left-hand side, the design panel right here. That's where you're always going to add something. And we're going to click on the shapes, right? You get this pop-up menu of different shapes. And I'm going to go ahead and add a circle. So it's going to add a circle to my canvas. And it's always going to be a 2-inch circle. It's going to default to that size right there. Just going to move it over to the middle of my canvas. So it's a 2-inch circle. I'm going to resize it and change the color of it. Before I do that, though, right now I have this bounding box around it because I clicked on it, which means it's selected. So it's selected. If I look over at the layers panel on the right-hand side, I have that minty green color. That means it's selected. If I come up to my edit bar, all of those tools, not all of them, but most of them are activated, right? They're available for me to use. So that tells me something's selected. If I look at the bottom of my layers panel on the left-hand side, everything is grayed out and ghosted because remember, you need at least 2 items selected to activate those action icons, okay? What if I click anywhere else on my canvas to essentially deselect my circle? So it's now deselected. There's no bounding box around it. If I look at my edit bar, can't really use anything. If I look at my layers panel, it's not highlighted, right? If I click on it again, it's like a light switch, right? So if I just click, deselect it and click on it and just kind of go back and forth and just look at your edit bar, just see how things turn on, right? So again, sounds silly, but a lot of times folks will say, oh, that option is not available to me. And it's probably because you haven't selected it or you don't have the right amount of items on your canvas selected to use it, right? So you want to make sure you have that bounding box around it to be able to modify it and change it. So speaking of changing it, if I want to resize it, there's 2 ways you can resize. One way is by manually resizing it. So if I wanted to manually resize something, I make sure it's selected. I got my bounding box around it. And if I take my cursor and I go to any corner, I get this up and down arrow, right? If I click and drag my mouse, I can make it bigger or I can make it smaller, right? I can manually resize it. So that's one way of resizing. Let's say I have very specific dimensions. Now, this is a circle, so it's a little bit different when you're working with a perfect circle. But like, let's say I had a square and I wanted to turn the square into a rectangle. My width is going to be different from my height, right? So that's where I would need to go to my edit bar, look for size, which tends to be, my screen is bigger. Depending on how big your screen is and what you're seeing, my screen is bigger. So the size is pretty much in the middle, but again, for you, it might be in a different place, but it should be between rotate and warp. So size for me is right in the middle, and there's the width and the height, and there's the little lock icon. So if I wanted to put in specific dimensions, so if I wanted to make this a 4-inch circle, because it's a circle, I could just put a number 4. I don't have to unlock my dimensions because when I put in a 4 and I hit enter, it's going to immediately turn my perfect circle. Both the width and the height are going to be 4 inches. But again, if this was a square and I was turning it into a rectangle, I would unlock it and put in what I want my width to be and what I want my height to be. And for those of you that have taken 101, we've done that, right? When we're creating a template for our journal, we're unlocking it. So I've now resized my circle. What if I want to change the color of it? So if you want to change the color of your circle, if you want to change the color, you're going to come up to your edit bar, but now you're going to come over to the left-hand side where it says operation. And again, operation is what your machine is going to do to your design. Right now it's set to basic cut. Next to operation, there's a square that's the same color as my circle. If I click on it, there's my material colors. So now it allows me to change my circle to a different color, right? And it's going to give you, these primary colors. Then, of course, there's an advanced section that you could click on to really get exactly what color you're going to be using. And again, why is that important? You want to visualize what that final project is going to look like before sending it to your machine. Again, It's important in terms of design. So when you go back to it later on after saving it, you can see what you did. You're also going to avoid wasting materials by doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and change the color to red. So now I have a red circle. Okay. What if I want a second circle? I could go back to the design panel and click on shapes, and it's going to add a circle. But what if I want a second red 4-inch circle? I could just make a duplicate of it. So I come over to the layers panel over on the right-hand side, and at the top of the layers panel, you got those 3 icons. And you'll notice the first one, which is the group icon, is grayed out because there's only one item. There's nothing for me to group right now. So that's not available. The next one is duplicate. And if you hover over them, they're going to pop up and tell you what they are. So there's my duplicate function. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And it's going to give me a second circle. So again, a way to avoid extra steps, you can just make a duplicate of it, right? So now I have 2 4-inch circles. Now, what if I want to change that circle to yellow, the second one? I'm going to go ahead and come up to the edit bar. Over by operation, there's that square. This time it's red. I'm going to click on it, and this time I'm going to select yellow. So now I have a yellow circle. So now I have 2 different circles. And you notice if I come over to my layers panel, the yellow one is at the top because the last item you add to your canvas will always end up at the top. Again, it's just helping you. So if you need to look for something, the last item you add will be right at the top. Can you change the order? Absolutely. So in the layers panel, you can move things around. If I click on a layer, I can drag it down below. And now the red one's on top. Why does that matter? So if something is on top, if I was to move this yellow circle over by the red one, see how it's going behind it? Because the red one is on top. If I move the yellow one above the red one, now it's on top of the red one. So the order in the layers panel will determine the arrangement. So that's one way. Now, if for some reason you're working with these 2 circles and you want to change the arrangement, you have an arrange option in the edit bar. So it's right between align and flip. And if you click on arrange, it gives you all these options to bring to the front, send backwards, send to the back. So if I click send to the back, it now just moves them for me. And if you've ever worked with like Microsoft Publisher, you know that that's an option that you can do. You can send your image behind or to the back, right? Depending on how many layers you have. So I'm just going to bring this one back over here. Now I have 2 items on my canvas, but when I look at the bottom of my layers panel where the slice is, that's still grayed out because I only have 1 item selected. So let's go ahead and select both of them. So we're going to take our mouse, we're going to click and drag, and we're going to create this box. And all you need to do is just touch both circles. You don't have to completely cover them. Just by touching them and you release your mouse, immediately you get this bounding box over the 2 of them. Now, they're both selected. Come over to the layers panel, bottom of the layers panel. Look at that. Slices available, combine, attach, and flatten are all available. If I come up to the edit bar, align between edit and arrange, it's activated. I can align them now. Okay, because they're both selected. So I'm going to click on that align drop-down menu. And let's see, I'm going to select center, which is the last one. So now when I click on center, they're going to be perfectly aligned. And the red one is going to be on top of the yellow one because if I look at the layers panel, the red is on top right now. So I'm going to go ahead and click on center. Completely aligned. You can't even see the yellow one because it's completely underneath. So again, you could manually align these, but why go through that extra step when you have this tool available to you? It's so invaluable. So again, I highly recommend using that align tool. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove them again. And now I want you to just practice selecting these two images. And again, just by using your mouse, right? I'm just going to draw a box to select both of them. I'm going to try it from the bottom right coming up, from the bottom left. And again, it seems silly, but it's becoming comfortable navigating whatever type of device you're using is really going to come in handy when it comes to crafting. Right? So now let me take this red circle and I'm going to overlap it a little bit down here. I'm going to put it just on a little bit of an angle. And now I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to select both of it. So they're both selected. Right? So now I'm going to come up to the edit bar, come back over to that align, but this time I'm going to select center vertically. Let's see what happens if you select center vertically. It just moves them perfectly centered, but now they're not overlapping. They're centered vertically. If I click on the undo, again, if I come up to the edit bar, all the way on the left-hand side, there's that backwards arrow. I'm going to go ahead and select the two of them again. This time I'm going to come up to the edit bar. For align, I'm going to select center horizontally. And now it's giving me that horizontal position, but they're both centered. So again, think about, you could manually do that, but would you actually have them perfectly aligned? Right? You're just unsure of that, right? I'm going to do that one more time with the center vertically. So I'm going to go ahead and select these two, come up to the align, and I'm going to select center vertically. So now they're centered vertically, and they're both selected, right? So if I look at the bottom of my layers panel, those combined functions, excuse me, those action icons are available to me. So I'm going to click on the slice one because they're both, there's two items. And again, remember, slice only works with two items and they have to be overlapping. I'm going to click on slice and it's done. It happened so quickly. It just kind of blinks. And I immediately notice that there's a cut line that appears where the overlapping is taking place, right? There was already a line that you saw where the red one's on top of the yellow one, but now there's a second cut line that appears. And if I look at my layers panel, I went from 2 layers to now 4 layers. So I now have slice result, slice result, slice result, slice result. I now have 4 layers. So that's an indication right there. I'm going to start pulling them apart to reveal my new layers. So again, in the slide, you saw the finished result, but here you do have to pull them apart. So now I have 4 layers. So now, what if I just want to select my 2 yellow layers, right? So again, I'm just going to take my mouse, draw a box, select those 2. If I look at my layers panel right here, those 2 are selected. Go ahead and draw a box over the 2 red ones. Those are both selected. What if I want to select my 2 smaller pieces in the middle? I can do that, right? So I'm just going to click and drag my mouse to draw that imaginary square, select the two of them, and they're both selected. Okay. What if I want to bring my red smaller piece just about a 1/2 inch on top of the yellow one, the smaller yellow piece, right? So I'm just going to select those two. And you know what? I'm going to bring it down here so I can use that align function so you could really see it move in place. So I'm going to go ahead and select those two smaller pieces. I'm going to come up to the edit bar and I'm going to look for align and I'm going to say circle, center vertically. And look at that, it just moves them in place. Okay. And now they're both selected already. I'm going to come down to my action icons. They're all activated except for contour, but this time I'm going to click on combine and I get this pop-up menu of different options. I'm going to go ahead and click on the first one, which is weld. It's going to weld these two smaller pieces into one new shape. So look at that. I immediately see there's a new shape because it takes on one color. There's no cut line. When I look at my layers panel, I have a weld result, and now I only have 3 layers. Right? So now I have these 3 new shapes right here. So let's say I was done with my design. And when it came to cutting out my project, I want my machine to cut out my 2 yellow pieces exactly how I have them on my canvas, right? My red piece is going to be separate because I'm going to use a different color for that, right? So I want that to be separate. But I want these 2 pieces, these 2 yellow pieces, to be cut out exactly how I have them on my canvas. I would want to use the attach function. But again, what happens if I don't use attach? So I'm going to go ahead and click on the make it button, top right, just to show you. And here's my prepare screen. My first mat has my red, looks like a crescent moon. And then my second one, see how they're in the same positions, right? But they're individual. They're not attached. They're individual shapes right now. Okay. So I would want to click on the cancel button down below, down right, come back, select the 2 that I want to attach, make sure there's a bounding box over the 2 of them, come over to the bottom of my layers panel and click on attach. And it's going to attach it, and it's going to be indicated in my layers panel that attach has been added. So now they're attached. I can move them around. I could resize them together, right? If I come over to the layers panel, right at the top, it says attach, and it has my 2 layers underneath, which is the weld result and then the 1 slice result, right? And now when I click on make it, I have my first mat and then my second mat. This is now 1. It's not 2 individual images. It's now 1 image because I've attached them. Okay, so so again, attach is going to freeze your design in place. And when we create that be kind image, you're going to see how we're using attach to keep our be, the ring, and the words be kind all together, because we're going to be using all black vinyl for that. And we want that design to be cut out exactly how it's placed on the canvas. That's going to make it a lot easier to put it all together. Okay, so again, this is your practice canvas. You can save this as a practice canvas, use it whenever you're not working on a project and you just want to go ahead and add shapes and change colors and just have some fun playing when you're not creating a project. And again, I promise, the more comfortable you become exploring all these different tools, the quicker you're going to move, the more confident you're going to feel, the more you're going to be excited to craft, right? To get out your machine and to create projects. So this is why we do the Cricut calisthenics. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete these items. So I have my canvas all squared away. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second and just check in to see how we're doing. How are we doing out there, Katie?
We are doing great. We did have a question earlier that I forgot to mention as it was something that you would need to show, but somebody asked how to change the color of your entire canvas, like your background. So I use that a lot if I have, want to visualize a shirt based on the color I have. So if you could show us that quickly before
Yeah,
we
when you
start
go
our
back in, I'll
project.
show that. Absolutely.
Yep. I think that's really. Oh, Chris asked, why when I weld do both colors become red?
Yes, so it will. So when you do weld, it's going to take on one color. So that does take, because again, it's going from two shapes to one shape. So essentially, it's going to take on one color of those two shapes. All right. So continue to ask questions. Again, Katie and Christine are here to answer your questions. Again, go to the chat. In the chat is where we're going to be giving you additional resources. If you're on a mobile or a tablet device, again, you're going to be able to get additional resources by going to our chat. All right, so I'm going to share my screen once again. I know a couple more questions are coming in, so feel free to continue to ask those questions as you are coming through. And again, if you're just going to be watching, which is totally fine, you can continue to just ask questions. Feel free to just ask questions, and just know that you're going to get that recording. So you have that recording that you'll be able to fall back on, and it is available to you. So just know that, we are sharing a ton of different information and tips and tricks with you. So that's why we applied that recording to you. So you have that available to you. Okay. So if you haven't already, go ahead and turn on your machine or your Canva or your design space if you did not do that during that first part. And we're going to get started. So how this project is going to work, and actually I want to share, let me see. I want to share my presentation just to give you a reminder of the project that we're going to be doing. So let's get that first slide out for you, just so you can see it. Okay, so again, here's a reminder of the project we're going to be making. So if you look at this Be Kind, you can see there's the ring, the black ring. We're going to use two circles overlap. We're going to use that slice function to be able to get that black ring right there. We're going to take the bee and weld the wings to the ring. So we're going to be using the weld function. We're going to add the Be Kind text, and we're going to attach the ring, the bee, and the words Be Kind all together, right? Because they are the same color, and we want to freeze that design in place. So again, you're going to see what we did in Cricut Calisthenics. There's going to be a little bit of repetition that's happening now as we're putting our project together. And we purposely do that because, again, we want to give you that option to be able to do that once again. So just know that if you missed it in the last step, you're going to be able to do it right now as we go through it. And as I go through each step, I'm going to do it first, and I want you to just watch, and then I'm going to delete it, and we're going to get to do it all together once again. Okay, so just know that I will do it first, and then we'll get to do it all together. Okay? All right. Issa says, are unite and attach basically the same actions? They are not, because again, remember, attach is just freezing your design in place. Unite is creating a new shape for you. Attach is not going to change your design. Attach is just going to freeze all of the elements you've selected on your canvas, freeze it in place, telling your machine this is how you want your machine to cut it out, right? Unite is going to take a bunch of shapes and put them together, unite them together. It's going to create one shape. Okay.
Hey, Coach. Chris was the one who asked why when they weld it all turns to red, and he said thanks. It was confusing group and weld, and I just want to let you guys know it is confusing. That's why we have this class. But if it makes you feel better, when I first started, my sister had just gotten engaged. She asked me to make her invitations for her wedding, and I spent, no lie, 10 hours trying to work on a prototype because I was confusing attach and weld, and I wasted the biggest pile of cardstock. Thankfully, it's cheap. That's what I recommend practicing with. But it took me 10 hours before it finally clicked between attach and weld. These classes were not available then, and YouTube did not help. But I finally found a video that did help. So these classes are so great, and you will get that recording to watch over and over. But the reason we do the calisthenics before the live project is literally just to grasp that concept. And as someone who did not grasp that concept, I'm so glad to see you guys are like, no, I was confusing the two. Please ask those questions. That is what we're here for. Pauline just said, what's the difference between weld and unite? And Coach said during the presentation, weld's been around forever. That's what he uses. That's what I use too, because that's what I'm used to. So unite is basically the same thing as weld, but you can undo it up to a point. The only issue is with Unite, you have to go in and merge your layers to weld it together before you cut it, which then makes it permanent. That's why I still use weld, because I'm just used to that and it's doing the same thing. My tip for that is before you weld, duplicate your image and then hide it in your layers panel, because if you want to go back and edit, all you have to do is unhide that layer and then you can make those edits. And Mike said is unite editable later. It is until you merge those layers together. That's why I still use weld. And again, duplicate and hide that copy. My layers panel sometimes looks real funny because I have a bunch of hidden layers, but I can go back in and unhide it and quickly edit, instead of having to worry that or if I did a whole project and then I didn't merge my united layers and I go to make it, it didn't do what I needed it to do, and now I wasted my project. And that's because I've been using weld for so long, I'm concerned that that's what I'm going to forget to do, is merge my layers.
Yeah, the combine function's only been around for about a year and a half. It used to be called weld. It was the weld function. And Cricut's always just making some exciting adjustments to the software. So the combine function arrived with all these new really cool features now. And that's why if you're using Design Space about a year and a half before, you just got really used to using the weld, and it's just a preference. So again, as Katie said, keep asking those questions. That's what really makes these live workshops special too, that you have someone that you can ask a question to, right? After today, you're going to get the recording, and you can still ask us a question by emailing us, but take advantage of having these experts available to answer your questions. All right, so I'm going to jump into my blank canvas right here. So we're going to work on the project. And I mentioned how I'm going to take you step by step, right? So I'm going to do the step first, and then we'll get to do it together. Someone had asked about changing the color of their canvas, right? So right now it's just a white color, but as Katie mentioned, maybe you're going to be creating a design for like a red t-shirt, and you want to change the color of your canvas to red so you can really visualize how that design is going to look. I want you to come over to your layers panel, the bottom of your layers panel, right above where those action icons are. It's going to say blank canvas, right? And there's this box right here that's white. If you click on it, essentially you're highlighting it, right? There's a gray highlight that appears. And now if I come up to my edit bar, the only option that's really available to me right now is the color. There's a color option. There's a color box. If I click on that, it allows me to now change the color. So if I was to pick red, it's going to now change the color of my canvas to red, right? And again, really going to come in handy if you're, again, working with a specific project and the background is the specific color that you want to visualize. That's really going to come in handy. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just change it to white. And I see a little thumbs up going up. So, all right. So here we go. So step one, and again, it's going to be similar to our Cricut calisthenics. I'm going to come over to the design panel and click on shapes. And I'm going to add a circle. So again, it's giving me a 2-inch circle. I want to change this to a 3-inch circle. So again, 2 ways I can resize. I can manually resize by going to any corner of my circle and getting that up and down arrow that I can then just manually resize. I can hover over it, right? Or I can come up to the edit bar right where it says size and just type in the number 3. And actually my lock icon is actually unlocked, which is interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a number 3 in the height as well to make sure I have that perfect 3. And I'm going to click on that little unlock to lock those dimensions in place. Right? So I now have my 3-inch circle. I want to change the color of it. It's this dark gray. I want to change it to black because this is going to be the ring that we're going to be creating. So to change the color, I'm going to come back up to the edit bar over where it says operation. Right next to operation, there's a little square that's a dark gray. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it's going to give me my material colors, and I'm going to go ahead and select black. So now I have my first circle complete. Okay. So we're going to do this together. I'm going to go ahead and delete it, and we're going to do step 1 together. So step 1, we're going to come over to the design panel on the left-hand side. We're going to click on shapes, look for a circle. It's a 2-inch circle. We're going to turn it into a 3-inch circle. And I'm going to come up to the edit bar, look for size, and I'm just going to type in the number 3 in the width. And it immediately gives me a 3-inch circle. So now we're going to change the color. Come back up to the edit bar over on the left-hand side where it says operation. Next to the operation, there's a little square. That's your material colors. And I'm going to select black. So now I have my 3-inch black circle. So that's step 1. Step 2, which I'll do first, I need a second circle, right? So I'm going to make a duplicate of this 3-inch black circle. I'm going to make sure it's selected, which it is because it's got a bounding box around it. I'm going to come over to the layers panel. Right at the top of the layers panel, those 3 icons, the second one is duplicate. And I just make a duplicate of it. So I have my second circle. Now I want to resize it. I want to make this one a 1/4 inch smaller because when I overlap them and I use the slice function, I want a 1/4 inch ring to be created. So I need a second circle that's a 1/4 inch smaller. So just like before, I'm going to come up to the edit bar where it says size, and I'm going to type in 2.75 inches. So I'm making it a 1/4 inch smaller. So now it's a 1/4 inch smaller. I'm going to go ahead and change the color of it too, because I want to have these 2 different circles. And I'm going to change it to yellow because that's going to be my background. If you remember from the project, there's a yellow or a gold background. So I'm going to turn it, I'm going to change it to yellow because I'm going to be using some yellow vinyl. So I'm going to come up to the edit bar, over by operation, click on the material colors and select yellow. So now I have my 2 circles. And if I take my yellow one and I just place it on top, I can just show you how that ring can start to form, right? Just by manually moving it. Okay, so I'm going to delete this and we're going to do this step 2 together. So if you haven't already, make sure you select your black circle, bounding box around it, come over to the layers panel. At the top of the layers panel, we're going to click on the second icon, which is the duplicate function. Get that second circle. Now we want to resize it. We want to make it a 1/4 inch smaller. So we're going to come up to the edit bar, look for size. And for the size, we're going to type in the width 2.75. So I'm making it a 1/4 inch smaller. So it's now a 1/4 inch smaller. And I want to change the color of it. So come back to the edit bar, over by operation, click on that black square, which is our material colors, and I'm going to select yellow. Right? So now I have 2 circles. So that's step 2. So now step 3 is going to be using the slice function. Okay. So I'm going to take my 2 circles and I want to select both of them. So I'm going to go ahead and select my 2 circles. Make sure they're both selected. And now I'm going to come up to the edit bar, look for align, click on that drop-down menu, and select the last one, which is center. And it's going to perfectly center them, right? It's going to just perfectly center those 2 right there. So now I'm going to use that slice function, but we're going to get to do that one together. So I'm going to go ahead and just undo so we can do the align step together. So we're going to go ahead and select our 2 circles, make sure they're both selected. Then we're going to come up to the align function in the edit bar, click on that, and the last option, which is center, right? The last option is center. And it's just going to perfectly align them. And then I'm not going to touch anything because we're going to do this next step together. So it perfectly aligns them right on top. You could see this wonderful ring that's starting to form, right? It's going to perfectly align them. So now this next step we're going to do together, make sure they're both selected. If you notice that your slice function at the bottom is grayed out, that means you only have 1 item selected, right? So we're going to go ahead and click on slice. And it just kind of blinked real quick on my screen. Immediately when I look at my layers panel, I have 3 results there. Slice result, slice result, slice result. So I can start clicking and dragging the results apart. So my yellow circle, this is going to be my background. I'm pretty much done with this. So I'm just going to put this off to the side right here. My ring is what I'm going to be working with. I'm going to be adding my B to the inside of this. This black circle right here, I don't need it anymore. I don't need that part. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. I don't need that. All I need is my ring and my yellow circle right here. Okay. So next step is going to be looking for that B image. So I'm going to do that first, and then we'll get to do it together. So looking for an image, we're going to come back over to our design panel on the left-hand side, and we're going to click on the little hot air balloon images. And here we are at Cricut Access. And we're just going to type in the search bar the word B. So it brings me to my results. And if your number is different than mine, don't worry, because that depends on what type of Cricut Access you have. But it's telling me I have a little over 2,000 results, which isn't too bad. I could scroll through. However, I have these filters on the left-hand side that really are going to narrow down exactly what I'm looking for. And the first filter is the free option, which allows me to look for a free image. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that because I do want a free image. And immediately it brings it down to 6 images, right? So it really narrowed it down for me. And when I look at my 6 images, the fourth one, here it is right here. That's the B I'm looking for. Okay. That's the B I'm looking for right there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. I get a green bounding box around it. And I'm going to click Add to Canvas, which is the button at the bottom. And it's going to add it onto my canvas. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it, and we're going to look for it together. So again, to add an image, we are going to come over to the left-hand side, click on the hot air balloon images icon. Now I was just in there, so it's gonna show me my results. I'm gonna clear all of my results, and I'm gonna go ahead and type in the search bar the word B. And again, it's giving me over 2,000. So I'm gonna come over to the left-hand side and click on the first filter, which is going to narrow it down to any free images. And it brings it down to 6 for me. And it's the fourth image for me. And I know in the chat, if you go to the chat, Katie put the image ID in there that you can just copy and paste it into the search bar, right? So if I was to, each image has these 3 dots right here. If I click on this and it flips it around, there's an image ID right there. If I was to copy and paste it into the search bar, it's going to now come up. That's going to be the only image that comes up for me.
Hey, Coach.
Yes.
Really quickly, when you get back on your canvas, Rhonda was just wondering if you could show her where the eye is to hide an image rather than deleting it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. So I have my image selected. I'm going to go ahead and click Add to Canvas, and it's going to add it to my canvas. So before we move on to the next step, let me show you how to hide an image. So let's say I click on my yellow circle right here, and I wanted to hide it. If you come over to your layers panel and you hover over any of your layers, you'll notice that a little eyeball will appear on the right-hand side next to your image. If you click on that eyeball, it will hide or unhide any image for you. Now, when you click on the Make It button, your machine will only cut out whatever is present on your canvas. So if you hide anything, it's not going to cut it out. So in this case, I don't want to hide it because I want my machine to cut it out. But let's say you create like a template. If you took our 101, we create a template for our design. You want to hide it before clicking on that Make It button. Anything you don't want your machine to cut out, you can hide or you can delete it. The reason why I deleted that circle was because it's really not part of my design at all. It's not going to help my design. But let's say it was a template that I was using, then I would hide it because if I save it and I go back to it, I still have that template available. But that black circle, the extra one, I just don't need it. And it's not going to help even if I go back to my project later on. Okay. All right, so next step, I'm going to click on my B, and I want to change the rotation of it. Right now it's facing this way, which is totally fine if that's what you want to do, but I want to rotate it upward. So I'm going to click on it, get that bounding box, and I'm going to come up to the edit bar. And this time I'm going to come over to the right-hand side of the edit bar where it says rotate. And there's a 0 in there, and I'm going to type in 270. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm rotating it 270 degrees, and it's just going to flip it around so it is upright. Okay. So I'm going to just undo that so we can do that together. So click on your B, make sure it's selected, come up to the edit bar where it says rotate, and I'm typing in the number 270. So I'm rotating it 270 degrees because I want the head of the B to be upright, to be at 12 o'clock, essentially. So now next up, I'm going to do this and we'll do it together. I'm going to drag my B into the middle of my ring. And I'm going to resize it manually until the wings are touching the ring, because I want to weld this together so it's one image. So I take my cursor and I go to any corner where I get that up and down arrow, and I'm just going to keep dragging it, making it bigger until my wings are touching. Once my wings are touching, I'm going to take my mouse, click away from the B and the ring, and draw a box over the two of them. I want to select both of them because I want to now align this so my B is perfectly center in the middle. So I come up to the edit bar, I click on align, and I'm going to select center, and it just moves it in place. I could manually align it, but again, I want to make sure it's perfectly aligned. I'm going to be a perfectionist about it. So now that is perfectly aligned right there. All right, so let's just try that one together. So I'm just going to click my undo button. Here we go. So we're going to take our B, move it to the middle of our ring, and then manually we're going to go to any corner and click and drag and make our B bigger until those wings are touching. And then we're going to draw a box over the two of them to select both of them. Come up to the edit bar, click on align, and we're going to select center, just to center it in place. And then we're not going to touch anything because we're going to do the weld function together because they're both selected right now. So they're both selected. We're going to come over to the layers panel at the bottom, click on the combine function, and select weld. And it's going to weld the wings to the ring. Turn it into one image. And if I look at my layers panel, it now says at the top, weld result. And if I click on it and I move it around, it's now one image. I can take my yellow circle, put it right behind it just so I could see that image really coming to life there. Right? So all I need to do now is add some text to this project. Joan, the difference between weld and attach. So weld is physically welding it together. It's creating a new shape. So it's taking the ring and the wings and kind of like gluing them together, right? Attach is just freezing your design in place. There's no welding. There's no creating a new shape. It's just freezing it in place how you have it designed. So your machine cuts it out exactly how you have it designed. We're going to use attach with the text in just a little bit. So you'll get to see it in action. All right. So adding text, I'm going to come over to the design panel. I'm going to click on the text button, and immediately you get a text box and you can just start typing. So I'm just going to type in be kind. Now it's going to default to Cricut Sans, which is the default font. If I wanted to change the font, I can come up to this second edit bar that appears, which is all related to fonts and the style and the size, but I'm going to keep it at Cricut Sans. I'm going to take it, drag it underneath my design, and I'm going to manually resize it until it lines up with my ring, which my ring is 3 inches. So essentially I'm resizing it till it's about 3 inches. Okay, and then because I resized it, I want to make sure it's aligned properly. So I'm going to go ahead and select the two, come up to the edit bar, click on Align, and this time I'm going to select Center Horizontally. And it just perfectly moves it in place. So now the be kind is aligned with my B and my circle. This is where I would then add the attach function because I want to freeze it in place, right? So my machine cuts out this image exactly how I have it on my canvas. But we're gonna do the text part together. So here we go. We're gonna come over to the design panel. We're gonna click on text. Again, I'm keeping it at Cricut Sans. If you want to change the font, you can. And all you need to do is just start typing. Drag it underneath. And I'm going to manually resize it. Go into any corner, get that up and down arrow until it's about 3 inches. And now I want to align it so it's perfectly aligned underneath the B. So select both of them, come up to the edit bar, click on Align, and now I'm going to select Center Horizontally. And it just perfectly moves it. And I'm not going to touch anything because we're now going to use the attach function. So right now, it's centered properly. I want to attach it because I want my machine to cut this out all at once, right? I'm going to use black for both the text and the ring with the B. So you're going to notice that the be kind right now is like a dark gray. It's going to turn black once I use the attach function. So I'm going to come over to the layers panel and click on attach. And it just quickly did that. And I noticed if I come over to my layers panel, it says attach, and it has the be kind text and the image underneath it. And if I click on it and I move it around, it's now essentially all attached. It's together, right? It's not welded together because it's not touching, right? Welding needs to be, there needs to be some kind of overlapping, but it's attached. So it's frozen in place. My machine is going to cut it out exactly how I have it here. And if I take my circle, just going to put it behind there just so I can see what that final project is going to look like. I can see that right there. I'm not going to attach my yellow circle to this because this is a separate color. So I need my machine to cut out that yellow background separately. But I essentially now have my image completely done. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Make It button, start connecting to my machine. I'm using a Maker 3, which uses smart materials. So it's always going to ask me if I'm using a mat, which I am. And here's my prepare screen. I have mat 1, which has my be kind and my B. And then my second mat has my yellow circle. Now, these are small images. So you might be thinking, can I cut both images on the same mat? You absolutely can. Now, I'm going to show you how. And if it's confusing for you and you're just unsure of it, go ahead and cut them out separately. It's totally fine. I just want to show this for anyone that's interested in learning how to put 2 images on one mat. So I have my second mat right here. And you notice that my yellow circle has these 3 dots in the top left corner. If you click on that, it gives you the option to move your object. So if I click on Move Object, it now asks me, where do I want to move it to? Which mat do I want to move it to? So I want to use it to move it to the black mat because that's where my Be Kind image is. So I select that. I hit confirm, and it's immediately going to place it right on top. But you can move your images on your mat wherever you want them to be. Just know that wherever you move an image is where you want to place your material. So I'm going to keep my Be Kind in the top left corner. I'm going to move my circle my background, which is going to be yellow, over here in the top right corner. So now I know when I cut out my vinyl, I'm going to place them on either corner, and my machine is going to cut them out exactly how they are placed on this mat. Okay, so again, very important that what you see on your mat right now is where you're going to place your material in just a little bit. I'm going to click on continue down right here, and it's going to start connecting to my machine. It's going to connect either be via USB or a Bluetooth, and it's going to take me through each step. Step one is going to be setting my base material. Sandra says, what does the second option do? It hides the object for you. So exactly what it says. You can either move the object or you can hide it. So let's say you are you're recutting an image, right? So you open up that mat and there's multiple images on there and you just don't want to cut all of them. You can hide an image and it will only cut whatever is on that mat. So here I am, set base material. You'll notice I have some popular materials already selected here. Now, I have my material that I want to use, which is the premium vinyl permanent glossy material. But if I didn't have it bookmarked before, I would come over and click on Browse All Materials. Now, for those of you on an Air 2, you have your smart dial. And if you're not seeing Browse All Materials, you want to turn your smart dial to custom, and that's going to allow you to browse all materials. But when you click on Browse All Materials, it's going to show you all the materials that are available for your machine. And you can scroll through and look through these materials, or you could also just type in the search bar what type of material you're going to be using. So I'm using vinyl. So I'm going to go ahead and click on vinyl, and it's going to give me the results. And again, I'm working with a Maker 3. Makers cut out a lot more materials than other machines. So the results are going to be different depending on what type of machine you have. And I'm going to scroll through and find the vinyl I'm using, which is the premium vinyl permanent glossy. I'm going to go ahead and select that. I know it's selected because I get a green check mark, and I'm going to click done. All right. So now step 2 is where you're going to load your tools and material. And again, it's taking you step by step. So it's going to tell you no tool is required in clamp A. That's where you would put your writing tool. Clamp B is where you're going to put your fine point blade. That's the blade that comes with your machine. So my machine is all squared away. In just a second, I'm going to switch to my overhead. We're going to cut out my material, place it on the mat, and let my machine do all the heavy lifting. All right. Thank you, Lori. Thank you so much for your comment. All right, so we're going to keep going. I'm going to switch over to my overhead, continue to ask questions. If you're still working on another step, no worries. Remember, you are getting the recording, which you get to watch back. So, no worries if you're still working on something or you haven't even done the project. You want to wait for that recording. You do have that available to you. So I'm going to switch over to my overhead. Okay. So I have all my materials here. Here's my tumbler that I'm going to be using. Again, I'm working with a premium vinyl permanent glossy. I like to say the permanent glossy premium vinyl, it's like a regular vinyl. It's a smooth textured vinyl. So after my machine cuts out this yellow vinyl, I'm going to actually cuts out the yellow and the black vinyl. I'm going to use some transfer tape. If you haven't worked with transfer tape, it's an adhesive clear tape that you're placing on top of your vinyl, and it's going to lift your design up all together and transfer it onto your blank. So that "Be Kind" text, those are individual letters. If I didn't have transfer tape, it would be really hard to lift them up individually without placing them crooked or possibly creasing, right? So that transfer tape is going to lift it up all together. Got my standard grip mat. You could use your standard grip, or you could even use your light grip, which is the blue one. I have my weeding tool, which I'm going to use to weed out the excess vinyl. I like to use my brayer tool to just go over my vinyl to make sure it's nice and secure on my mat. Got my my paper trimmer to cut my material. And then I have 2 scraper tools that I'm going to be using to adhere that transfer tape onto the mat. So again, I'm going to cut down my material and place it exactly how I saw it on the screen, right? So I'm going to cut it down exactly how I saw it on my prepare screen. So I've got my yellow material. I'm going to place it right in the top right corner, just like I saw it on my prepare screen. And now I'm going to take my black vinyl, cut it down, and again, place it right on that top left corner, like I saw it on the prepared screen. Because this is exactly where my machine is going to cut out my material. And again, I'll take my brayer tool and just go over it so it's nice and flat and secure. Take my mat, slide it into my machine using my 2 guides. There's my blinking load and unload button. Go ahead and load it into my machine. It's going to register my design. Once it's ready to cut, my go button will start blinking. While that's doing that, I'm going to get my transfer tape out and cut down some transfer tape so I have it ready to go. There we go.
Hey, Coach,
Yes,
when you're giving tips about cleaning the mats, can you also tell us like how often we should change our blade and stuff like that?
absolutely. All right. So while we're waiting for that to cut, I just want to mention some other resources available to you. So of course you could sign up for an upcoming class. If you haven't already, we have these wonderful Facebook groups that you can join. We have our official group, we have a beginners group. Again, tons of resources. If you go to our chat, our Cricut experts are actually putting the links there for you to join those groups. I also mentioned earlier in the workshop our Cricut Learn website. We have on-demand classes that you can watch at your own leisure. You can watch them as many times as you'd like. So those are also available to you, and that you just go to our learn.cricut.com website. So you have that available to you. And again, Cricut really wants to be able to provide you with the resources you need to make your crafting experience one that is fun and easy. So it's done cutting. I'm going to go ahead and remove my vinyl. When I remove my vinyl, I flip over my mat and I peel my vinyl. I actually peel my mat away from the vinyl. So I just get one corner of the vinyl and I peel the mat away from the vinyl. Now, when it comes to cleaning my mat, if there's any dust or any dirt on it, I usually just take some non-alcoholic baby wipes, or I will take some warm water and soap, and I will just wipe it down, let it air dry, let that stickiness come back, and then place your plastic protective screen on it, okay? If you notice, after doing that, that stickiness is just not there, then it's probably time to replace your mat, right? But these mats are going to last you quite a long time. When it comes to your blades, it really depends on how often you're using your blades, what kind of materials you're using with your blades, right? So if you're working with just paper and vinyl, they're going to last a lot longer than, let's say, you're working with leather, or if you're using specialty blades and you're cutting wood or chipboard, right? That's going to really dull down your blade a lot sooner. So I would say, for me, my blades tend to last me about 2 years, right? And that's using them quite often. So these blades really do last quite some time. There are lots of little tips out there on how you can help your dull blade, everything from getting some aluminum foil, rolling it up into a ball, and you're just kind of piercing the aluminum ball, and that's going to help sharpen the blade for you. But again, it depends on how often you're using your blade before you need to replace it. So, all right, so I have my two pieces of vinyl. I'm going to go ahead and weed away any of the excess vinyl I don't need. Whenever I do any kind of weeding, I always have a lint brush next to me because that allows me to get rid of that excess vinyl quick and easy. And I'm going to go ahead and just use my weeding tool and get rid of that excess vinyl. And then we will be working with our transfer tape. So again, I'm just going to weed away any of the excess vinyl that's not part of my design. Okay. There we go. And then we're going to place this on our tumblers. All right. Oh, see, my letter just moved on me. So now I'm going to have to place it back and do some fun what's the word I'm looking for here? Some fun placement and making sure that it's properly placed on there, but I'm going a little bit faster than I normally would. So you do want to be careful when you are removing your vinyl so that doesn't happen to you. But just think about it, if I didn't have transfer tape, when I lift this up and I had to place all these individual letters on my tumbler, that would be really hard. So again, that transfer tape is really going to come in handy for you. And just remove that there. So it's completely weeded out. I'm going to take my transfer tape. I'm going to peel it off of its backing. I'm not going to get rid of the backing because I can reuse this transfer tape 5 or 6 more times. Okay, so don't get rid of that backing. I'm going to take my transfer tape. I'm going to place it over my Be Kind layer first. Take my scraper tool and just press down. Again, you're adhering that transfer tape onto the vinyl. And you want to make sure you're getting in the corners. And then you do want to flip it around and do the same thing again. Really get those corners in there. And don't be afraid to press down, because you really want to adhere your vinyl onto that transfer tape. And now I'm going to peel the vinyl backing. And look how it's just appearing on the transfer tape. And with the letters, sometimes you might have to go over it again. You want to make sure that they're, yeah, it looks like I got to go over those letters a little bit more. You might have to just kind of rock back and forth. There we go. So now I have my first layer all squared away. And I'm actually just going to cut some of my transfer tape off. Put a little bit too much there. You can keep it if you like, but I'm going to go ahead and just cut some of it down. And now I'm going to place this layer with the transfer tape onto my yellow background right here. And then once again, take my scraper tool. And I'm actually holding on to my letters because I don't want them to stick onto my craft table and to lift up. So I'm holding them on, holding onto that piece as I'm applying pressure to just the Be in the Ring and my yellow background. And now I'm going to remove my yellow background. And now I have my entire image all on one piece of transfer tape. Right, so see how that transfer tape really comes in handy. So now I can get my tumbler and place my design. Now you'll notice with the tumbler, it's going to wobble, it's going to move around. So how do you keep it in place? So I just use hand towels or a towel. I either grab a towel and I create like a little cradle, a little crib in the middle for my tumbler to just sit in, right? Just having something like that, it's going to hold it in place. And I use, depending on what type of tumbler I'm using, I use the lid there's a little lip on it as a guide in terms of where I'm going to place my design in terms of centering it. And when I go to place it, I actually fold it in half down the center, kind of like a taco, and then I press out, right? And now because I'm working with two layers, essentially two sections of my design, if I need to cut into my design so I don't, so it'll go down flat and I'm not getting any creases or any kind of air bubbles or anything, I just cut into the transfer tape so then I can lay it down as flat as possible. And then I just go over it with my fingers to really adhere it, or I'll take my scraper tool and go over it. And now I'm going to remove my transfer tape. And when I remove my transfer tape, I'm not going to pull it, like tug on it. I'm going to peel it away nice and slow, like I'm doing this nice big reveal, right? So I'm keeping it nice and firm and attached to my tumbler, and I'm not risking lifting up any vinyl. And of course, I cut into this transfer tape, so I won't be using it. But there you have it. And there is my image right there. Right? And I went a little bit quicker. I usually would take a little bit more of my time because I think my Be Kind is not exactly where I want it to be. But again, just to show you how you can do it, right? And then you could always take your fingers and just go over just to smooth out any other sections you might have, right? But there you have it. What do you think? How are we doing out there? So I know we've shared a ton of information with you. And again, that's why we are giving you the recording for today's class. Again, it's in the chat. So you can just copy it. And if you don't want to wait for the email, you have that recording available to you. So, feel free to watch it as many times as you'd like. If you have additional questions for us, use that makeWithUs@Cricut.com email address because we'd love to get a response out to you. Katie just put, I believe, is that the YouTube link? There it is. Thank you, Katie. So that's just in there. I'm going to launch one more polling question. And I'm just curious to know, I know we shared a ton of information with you. How are you feeling? How are you feeling after all of that information we've just shared? And are you excited to get started here? All right,
Hey, Coach.
Yes.
I know that you used the permanent glossy vinyl setting for your vinyl, and some people were confused because I know that it's listed differently on different machines. So some will say permanent vinyl, some it just says premium vinyl. That's okay. As the machines are developed and put out, the wording is changed based on what it says on the label. So the label's changed a few times, so the settings changed, but it's all the same. It's just for your machine. So don't worry about that. So if it just says premium vinyl and not permanent, it's fine. Like, it's nothing to stress about. You're good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, again, just be, really focusing on what you're creating and be proud of what you've done, right? Because it's pretty incredible of what you're able to create. So again, we are here for you. We want to be able to provide you with more resources. So go ahead and fill out that last poll question, how you're feeling now. And again, if you need more assistance, that's why we're here. Maybe you're feeling confident. You could sign up for other classes. You could always come back to 102. Maybe you didn't take 101 and you want to come back and learn more about getting started. You are more than welcome to do that. In just a little bit, once this class ends, a survey will pop up. We would greatly appreciate your feedback. We're always trying to make these classes more and more resourceful and enjoyable for you. So we would love your feedback, and we thank you in advance for filling it out. It's a super quick survey as well. All right, so I'm gonna end the poll right here and see our survey results. So it looks like we have 59% of you feeling pretty confident about moving forward, 24% ready to soar with ideas, 9% feeling a little challenged, and 8% not sure if they can move forward without some additional support. And that's why we're here. And that's why we provide you with that recording. So you do have that additional support, because we want your crafting journey to be one that is fun and enjoyable. So thank you for filling that out. Let's see real quick. Cynthia, I'm so glad you're having so many light bulb moments. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. We're so excited that you're here. Jewel mentioned cake toppers. If you're interested in learning about cake toppers, again, sign up for one of our card classes, because that's working with cardstock, which is what you would use for those cake toppers. And you're going to get some really fun skills. We also have some great on-demand classes on card making, paper crafts, which you can use those skills with the cake toppers.
Hey, Coach.
Yeah.
Kim asked if she can use smart vinyl on a mat.
Absolutely, you can. So again, smart vinyl, it's a matless material, and it was created to be used with certain machines like your Maker 3, your Explorer 3, your Venture, your Joy, right? So if you don't have those machines, or even if you have those machines and you want to use a mat, you can use a mat. You want to make sure that you're just cutting it down and you're placing it on a mat. So absolutely, you can definitely use it.
And then, Coach, I just wanted to let everybody know that in our Cricut official group, we will be doing a handmade holidays event today. I know an email went out, but in case anyone missed it, you guys are going to be getting tons of tutorials, shared projects. I can't even tell you guys, it's a whole like all day event. Everything gets posted in the morning. It's very organized. There's a schedule. But if you guys join that Facebook group, Cricut Official, that's going on tomorrow. So you don't want to miss that. And then there's tons of challenges. You guys can win prizes. And rumor also has it that all of the official groups, all of them, have a couple challenges going on this month where you guys can win your very own Joy Extra bundle. So if you guys join all of the official groups, you get different chances in all of them.
That's super exciting. Awesome.
I wish I could win because I want another Joy Extra.
It's the best. It really is. I want to mention real quick too. Share your projects. I'd love to see your Tumblrs. Post them in the groups and just be like, hey, Coach Danny, check out my Tumblr. Nora, I want to see your Tumblr with that glitter vinyl because I love glitter vinyl. So post a picture of it. We would love to see it. Katie and Christine are admins in these groups, so they will, if I don't see it, they will tag me and let me know. But I would love to see your projects. So again, I hope you had fun. I know I did. What a great way to kick off the weekend. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and hopefully we will see you soon. We've got some really exciting holiday themed workshops coming up in the next 2 months. So I hope to see you later this month or next month. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a